Today we have Michelle Geddes, CIO for the San Francisco Department of Emergency Management. Michelle, welcome to the Public Sector Show by TechTables.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm super excited. We've had a great intro call, and we were just talking before this too. It's just been great getting to know you. Hopefully we'll be able to connect in person later this year. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But for those in the audience who may not know you quite yet, could you maybe just talk about a little bit about yourself and just a short background?
I'm Michelle Geddes. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the Department of Emergency Management within the city and county of San Francisco. But really what that means is I am responsible for all of the systems and the technologies that run the 911 function and the emergency management function for the millions of visitors and residents that come into the city. And not only do I manage standard systems and technologies that run IT departments, but my team is very specialized in running systems that support 911, the phone system, the computer-aided dispatching system, the radio communications capabilities, the emergency alerting function, and cybersecurity tools. And we actually are responsible for the citywide data center in San Francisco. So it's a pretty big responsibility. But I've been working in the public sector for about 15 years now. Before that, I was in the private sector where I really learned how to design, build, and implement enterprise-wide mission-critical systems. So that was a super valuable experience for me. In the private sector, I would say I have a pretty challenging job, but I think the two things that I'm really the most proud of is the first is that I'm an engineer by trade. So I have a degree in electrical engineering from University of California, Davis, go Aggies, and a master's degree as well in systems engineering and architecture. So that really was quite an accomplishment, I felt, for me. But then I think the most challenging role that I have is that I'm a mom. And I've been a working mother. I have 2 teenagers, and keeping up with them and keeping the systems running here in San Francisco are probably the 2 most challenging things that I do day to day.
What is more challenging, running the household as a working mom or the systems in San Francisco?
Oh, they're both challenging. And it's funny because if I'm in San Francisco and I'm here in the 911 center, I am checking my phone to see what my children are doing. And then when I am at home with my children, I am checking and making sure that all systems are running. So it's a constant balancing act, I would say.
I love that. I grew up with a working mom. There's probably nothing more powerful than a woman who is a working mom. Talk about time management skills. You just get it done. I don't even know how to explain it. I think I work hard, but I even look at my own mom when she was alive, and not even comparable. So it leads really great to the STEM piece of the talk next. But you led into that. So super smart, electrical engineering by trade. Who got you into that? What's the background? Were you on campus and someone was talking to you? Was there a mentor? Was there a teacher? What kind of galvanized you towards that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it comes down to, is having that leadership. I was lucky enough to have a mother who was a nurse. My father was an engineer. They absolutely encouraged me to explore the sciences, math, and they gave me so much confidence and told me that I was good at it, and they encouraged me and honestly pushed me towards that direction. I also had a high school calculus teacher who was the coolest surfer. He shaped surfboards on the side, let's just say that. And he was my calculus teacher. And he said, Michelle, if you do anything in your life, it should be in math because you have that gift. And I didn't realize it at the time. And honestly, when I was looking at going to schools, I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to be an engineer. In fact, I was telling my parents, I said, I want to be a teacher. I want to help people, and I want to help people learn. And my dad would say things like, why don't you go get your engineering degree first, and then you can teach engineering? So it was just always encouraged. And so that's what got me into it. And so now with my daughter, I encourage her, even my son as well. I just remind them how good they are, especially in math and science. And I I give them homework problems to work on at home and I do it with them. And every test they get back, I post it on the refrigerator and I celebrate them and their accomplishments in those subjects because I think it's been a foundation for me and I want to see others have that same confidence.
Yeah, I love that. I do something similar with my daughter on the math. I'm a big math, I'm not really a big English kind of guy, so I defer that to my lovely wife.
Yeah.
But on the math side, I used to tutor multivariable calculus, and for a long time, that's I wanted to go into finance, but there's a big math part of that. But she will come, and usually it's like the extra credit problems where it's like, I don't really have to do this, so I can skip it. And I'm like, no, you're doing it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're doing it. And so we sit down, and it's funny. Like they typically know how to do it. It's just it just requires more steps, right?
Yeah.
You're just like analyzing what information do we have, what's true on the page, and then what's missing, what don't we know, and then you just take it one block at a time, and then it usually ends up it's the same sequence where she's like, Annabelle will go, oh, it was just so easy. I knew I could solve it. I'm like, I'm just the guide, just walking you through.
Come to my house because my kids aren't listening to me anymore. So I need you to help me with them, and then maybe I could come down and help Annabelle.
Yeah, we could swap for a little bit. Okay, we talked a little bit about love it, got the parents, and when I think about the world today, because I interview a lot of folks, and I think it's also, and growing up, I grew up with a single mom and two aunts trying to get girls into STEM and just really making them feel empowered and confident. What maybe advice or tips would you have for both parents or CIOs today, and then the second half of that is if you were talking to your kids, what advice would you give to the younger generation?
You hear this all the time, right? Industry needs females in these disciplines. We need female engineers, and it's a gap right now. And here's the challenge. And I felt like this when I was going through school, and even in my early on in my career, I almost felt like an imposter. Like I would sit around in these classes, and there were these brilliant mathematicians all around me, did not seem or look even anything like me. And so I just didn't feel like I fit in. And then even when I was in the private sector and I would be assigned as a female to be the lead engineer on a project, I always felt, oh, they probably didn't want me here because I'm the female. And it's not necessarily that you have to be the best engineer and know the ins and outs of all the different technologies and the roadmaps of products and things like that. There's so many other facets to being a good engineer. Things like, and especially when you're working in teams and in government organizations, you need to be a great teammate. You need to communicate. You need to be a leader. And those, at least for me, those parts of me was what helped me through my career. And I feel like women have a lot of these strengths that they can bring to these types of jobs. And so I would just encourage you to stay with it. You might feel like you're not contributing, or you might not feel like you're super confident in your skills, but the reality is that these organizations need you and these jobs need you.
Yeah, I love that. Being a great teammate, communicating, being a leader. You talked about imposter syndrome. I was reading, I think it was the Harvard Business Review. It was a great article on, I got to go dig it up, but it was a great article on typically men like myself, highly overconfident. My wife editing this podcast is going to die laughing. But yeah, I think they were saying like most of the time men are more or high, or they overshoot their confidence on a certain subject, and then women tend to undershoot the level of confidence that they have.
Yes.
Which I think is super fascinating because I don't know the exact stat. I would say it's true because I would say I'm a pretty confident person. I would say my wife is like shy, but man, she's really smart once you sit down and allow her an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm like it's like the reverse imposter syndrome with me. I'm like, oh, I don't belong here. They're not going to want me here because I'm not the smartest gentleman in the room per se.
Thank you for stepping up and leading. This is great. And you also said this too about having that kind of example, which I think is super powerful to see someone in just any role go before you and lay the foundation, which I think is super powerful. And I was talking actually with one of my earliest episodes with this guy, Gary Brantley, who's the CIO for the city of Atlanta. He's now the CIO for the NFL. And Gary on the episode talked about how when he came to Atlanta, the team didn't know how to win. And he talked about, and very similar with kids, if you don't know what a winning environment or a winning team looks like, it's very hard to win. So there's a kind of a culture piece there. I'm a Golden State Warriors fan, so it's like when Steve Kerr takes over the Warriors a number of years ago.
Yes.
Something about winning, it just gives you that there is a confidence. It also just gives you the roadmap a little bit to know, hey, and this is what I love about seeing in kids is with the high schoolers is you can look at a high schooler and see something in them before they see it in themselves. That's like the coolest part about leadership. It's like my favorite part. And the same thing with adults. And a lot of times it's just these beliefs, these limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves that end up blocking us. And it's not actually a technical capability.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just talking about teams and building teams. When I took over this team, we had some retirements. I had over 30% of my team retiring within the first year that I took on this role. And so I have really been in the business of building my team and finding the right teammates. And so I think I'm uniquely skilled to do this because I have the background in the systems and the technologies, but then also I'm a people person and I really love building high performing teams with unique contributors with different backgrounds. And that's what I've been working to do here with this department for the past couple of years. It's important.
I love that. And I'm going to say, quote, building high performance teams. So I recently interviewed Anushri Bog, who said the exact same thing. Quote, love building high performance teams. So that's got to be a pretty deadly combo. You're like both incredibly smart and technical and a people person. I feel like it's sometimes one or the other, but that's a deadly combination when you got the two of those together. That's a great way to, I am not technical. I'm very relational, but I am not the most I've got is SQL and maybe some math. That's all I got.
I will say the more and more that I'm away from the server room and from the systems and getting in and digging into the configuration, I feel like I'm losing it more and more. But every now and again, I'll make my way back in there and try my best to fit in. But it's hard to keep up with everything. It's really hard.
Yeah, the world's changing. It's just moving so fast right now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So on the California plan for the 911 system, moving to the cloud, we briefly talked about this. Could you maybe just talk about the 30,000-foot overview of that project? When are we going to see that kind of come to fruition, and where are we at in the journey?
Yeah, so California has quite an endeavor on its hands. So in general, I don't know if your listeners know this about the 911 system in general, but right now when you dial 911, your call gets routed through very old communications pipelines that have not been modernized. The state of California has adopted a plan to do this, to both not only modernize the back-end network that connects all the 911 calls together, but then also is pushing all of the 911 centers in California, and there's about 450 of them throughout the state, to move all of their 911 call handling equipment into the cloud. And so this is a huge shift for mission critical systems, especially with very sensitive data and systems that need just constant uptime, right? And so most PSAPs have all of their technology on premise, hardened backup power, backup network connectivity. And so we're being asked to move away from this on-premise environment to a cloud-based environment. And I will say it is the way of the future, but it is slow moving. The state launched this in 2021. I know that there's maybe one or two of the 450, we call them PSAPs, public safety answering points, that are running on the new back-end network technology. And then there's only one, which is like a 2-seat dispatch center in a very small town that is actually running their call handling equipment in the cloud. And so it's gonna take some time to roll out. There's a lot of just lessons learned, and we need to see larger dispatch centers moving to this technology first, I think, before a center as large as the one in San Francisco. We have over 60 dispatching and call taking positions, and we're combined. We serve police and fire and medical 911 response for San Francisco. And so it is imperative that our systems stay online. And so moving into that kind of environment is just it's still some time out, but we're working towards it. I have a team that engages with the state on this on a day-to-day level, making sure that we're tied in with their plans, and that when the technology we'll be ready to migrate.
No, that is quite the undertaking. I don't even know where to begin with that, but that's a very large project. Something I was thinking about, is there any other, I actually haven't researched this, are there any other cities or states where they've had such a large jump that maybe they're a little bit more down the road from where you're at, that you're looking at, hey, this could be a great example for us?
There are, I want to say and there's not a ton of succinct data around where everybody is in this process, the states and then the municipalities as well. I want to say there's roughly 20 states that have started the rollout of the modernized network. It's called the EZNet. Maybe one or two that have actually implemented it statewide, small states, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but there is not anywhere that I know of that we are monitoring that has done cloud-based call handling equipment. And I would love one of your CIOs on this podcast, if they are aware of it, to please contact me, because I will do a debrief with my team, because I want to know everything about it before we take the big jump.
So that's really funny. That's exactly what I was going to say. So
yeah,
if you're a CIO that's listening to the podcast and you've had a very large migration like this from an on-prem to a cloud with the 911 emergency management system, you can just email me, joe@techtables.com. I will connect you with Michelle, and she's absolutely fantastic. So if you have any lessons learned, please share those. Don't hide those in a closet or drawer. Michelle would love to know what those lessons are so we can help speed this up. It's a super powerful and critical system. So I personally have not had to call 911, but once upon a time, like a year ago, I was on a business trip, and my wife actually had to call 911 when I was gone. It was pretty crazy. So she had a piece of cartilage that broke off in her back in the middle of the night, which is, you're like, how does that happen? And lodged into her spine. And so I was flying across the U.S. And so she's like, why are you telling this on the podcast? Because people use the system. So you can thank Michelle, Jamie, for keeping the system up to date. But I digress.
Yeah, no. And when you call 911, you want it to work. And let me say, I've been in this role for 3 years. I have lost the 911 phone system only one time we can count it in minutes. And during that time, it was a power incident. Power is always, as any CIO knows, power is always one of the biggest challenges in keeping systems running. And so we had a human-created power incident that brought down systems and networks. And so we did lose primary and backup for a short period of time. And what I had wished, and what we are now working on, is figuring out a way to get our backup system in the cloud even sooner than our primary system, so that if and when we do have the issue in the on-prem building, whether it be power or whatnot, we have a cloud environment that we can move to. And so that's actually what we're changing our strategy and trying to get our backup in the cloud, maybe even potentially before we put the whole primary system in the cloud.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Only one time. That's very impressive. That's quite. You said it was a human created power.
When you come up to San Francisco, I'll give you the full story.
Yeah.
It involved a ladder. Let's just say that.
I cannot wait. Jamie and I are looking forward to coming to San Francisco. Can you share any stories around the learnings or successful industry partnerships that you've had over the last couple years? And if you can't name the vendor, it's fine, but just love to hear from a broad level.
Oh, vendors are my lifeline. They are what keep, honestly, these 911 systems running. I mean, I'm not staffed, if you think about it, right? And probably no government is staffed 24/7, round the clock to keep all these IT systems running to support all emergency functions for a major city. And so I rely extremely heavily on the vendor partners that we have. And I tell my teams that. And, because I saw it when I was in the private sector, I would see these relationships with government agencies in the private sector where it was adversarial and they were constantly saying, you're not delivering this thing, it's not coming on time, rather than, and they just beat themselves up. And it's, wait, hold on a second. If you now look at this as a partnership and you work together to solve the problem and maintain the system and upgrade the network, your success is their success and their success is your success. And I tell my team that all the time. Create and establish good relationships with the vendors because they will help you. I will say, for example, our cell phone providers, both Verizon and FirstNet AT&T, have been really great partners for us. For the longest time, local governments were building their own communications two-way radio. And so we're used to managing and building and maintaining two-way radio systems. But several years ago, 10 years ago, the FCC came back and said, okay, no more of that. We're not going to be giving cities and counties the frequencies to build these broadband wireless networks. You need to start relying on your carriers. And so that's where AT&T and FirstNet stepped up, and then Verizon has now stepped up, and they are now with us. If I have a special event, I call Verizon and they come into town, they set up our command post, they staff the command post, they make sure that there's internet available, they make sure that all the cell phones are working, and they bring in these hardened tools and have direct contact into their network. And so we always have the ability to communicate during these major events, when usually you typically lose cell phone coverage, right? If you're in the middle of a big event. And so they're with us hand in hand. And then I don't have to staff my team and pay them overtime to be out at the command post all hours of the day. They're here with us. They're our partners and they're providing us this service. And it's been, and and there are many other industry partners that will come out and help us, whether it be establishing internet service, satellite communications, just providing tools that we need to manage our emergency incidents.
I love it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Verizon. They're awesome. Now,
Yeah.
did we talk about this? Is it Patty Rose that we know? Did we discuss this?
I know Patty's
Yes.
great. Yes. Her and the Verizon team, they do a great job of really listening to the needs of public safety and coming up with solutions. The Verizon, their frontline initiative is really all about giving first responders setting up these communications networks and being available to them in times of crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Patty. She is awesome. She's been on the podcast live, which has been super fun.
Yeah.
Plug for myself, I guess. Episode 64, I had to pull that up. How about that one? Because we're going to be on episode 150 very soon. Redefine the front line with Patty Rose, VP of Public Sector Sales at Verizon. Check it out. That was crazy. I just heard a giant train go by. This is the nice part.
Yeah.
I just put that and I go, cut train out. Cut train out.
That was a train. There's no train by me. That was your train.
Oh, it was totally my train.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a crazy train. Yeah, so check out episode 64, Redefine the Front Line with Patty Rose, VP of Public Sector Sales at Verizon. And shout out to, the whole Verizon team, real great. They do a lot of great work. Super nice. I know a bunch of them over there. Just fantastic women, all of them.
Yeah, and they revamped their innovation center in San Francisco. They launched it. I was there at their opening, and they have some pretty interesting new technologies with 5G, with private networks. They're doing some pretty innovative stuff, satellite communications. Definitely, I took my team there and we are starting to rethink how we implement comms for our department.
Love that. That's awesome. It is a small world in the public sector. It is really small. Well, okay, that is fantastic. Final question, a little bit of a lightning round question. Top 2 to 3 CIOs or tech leaders that you would love to hear next on the podcast.
State of California, if you can pull that off. The state of California is doing some pretty great things with data initiatives. They actually took the almost the entire data team from San Francisco, and they are now in the state of California. And the state of California is also running some statewide data centers, and they provide really great service to other municipalities throughout the state of California. So I would say that they're doing a great job, and hearing their goals would be ideal. And then I will say one of the CIOs that I'm the most proud of and happy to call a friend is down in Santa Clara County. Nita D'Amato is the actually acting CIO of Santa Clara County, and she's got quite a story, quite a background. She is a Marine, so ex-military, also a working mom, and she is quite a leader, and she has found herself in an environment surrounded by some really smart, really innovative people, obviously in the heart of Silicon Valley, and she is navigating that team and working together with the county administrator to really modernize systems. And they've got an interesting environment because it's all consolidated IT. So she's got everything under her: the health care, the PMO, many different disciplines, all the justice, public safety technologies are within her team. So it's a very large organization that she's running.
Fantastic. Well, the state of California, if anyone knows anyone at the state of California, I will buy you mojitos if you can introduce me. That's my offer. It'll stand for as long as this podcast is live, which will be forever. This is fantastic. Michelle, I had a blast. Late August. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I have a live event in August, which is great. So it needs my calendar. Jamie and I will make it up there, and we're excited. Oh, did you want to talk about that? I didn't know if that was public yet. What you're doing? Should we talk about that?
It's not quite public yet.
Okay.
We're working on it. I'm working with the San Francisco City CIO, also another female, and we're working to pull together a Women in Technology Forum for government employees here in San Francisco. And we're really looking at this as a way to create a voice and a means to communicate amongst other females that work in government, the IT space. So we're excited to launch that.
Love it. Maybe we'll have to bring you back on later at some point with a few other gals to talk about the learnings, successes that you have in California that can share with other women CIOs and the other 49 states outside.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Do you have any idea, like percentage-wise, where it lands? Female versus male versus...
Oh, that is a great question. Oh, I would love to know. I wish I had it's not something I track, but I think I could maybe ask Jamie to go through we've got a Notion database of every guest who's been on.
You have that statistic for me. In late August, I will use it when I meet with all of the leaders here in San Francisco. The female engineer. Yeah. You get a live event in San Antonio, and we don't have a live event in the Bay or in California.
We should. We should have a live event in California. Yeah. It's coming at some point. We
should go there. Sonoma?
Yeah, we should go to Sonoma.
That's where we should go. Yeah.
And do wine tasting there. Anyways, and Michelle, come on. Come on. This is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Michelle, I will look out for the invite in late August. I will get you the stat. We will figure it out. Yeah. And then if the stat is really low, which I'm taking a ballpark on it right now, you'll have to help me.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds awesome. Like a plan.
Thank you, Michelle. Had a blast.
Thanks. This was great to connect.